correspondent for the Washington Examiner, David Drucker, and senior editor for Reason magazine, Peter Suderman. Thanks, all three. David, starting with you. This division, is it growing, shrinking, dissolving? Whatever you like to say it is.
Yeah, really good question. I think that the division isn't as big as some people make it out to be when you consider that it's conservatives trying to decide simply how conservative they should be, not whether they should be moderate versus conservative. But I think the party has been leaderless for some time at the top. It's been a long time since Reagan. I think George W. Bush doesn't identify. The Republicans today don't identify with him. And so what you have is a party trying to sort of recreate and figure out what it wants to be going forward. And they're shedding some of the sort of Reaganite positions they've had in some ways on national defense and fiscal policy. They're keeping some of them. And I think this is a part of a natural evolution that parties tend to go through every generation or so.
Well, that means it could be at least 2 years then if they don't have a presidential tentpole, as you're saying there, David. Right?
And I think it will be.
All right. Victoria, to you on this. We were mentioning Raul Labrador. What might he bring to this discussion, you think?
You know, I think it's showing how well the Tea Party is doing and that it is alive and well. You know, being based out of Texas, sure, I was surprised that Cantor lost, but it didn't come totally out of the blue for me because here on the ground, I see just how powerful the Tea Party voice still is. So we're going to be seeing that internal struggle, not just at the base, but also at the top. And I think this is where Raul Labrador comes in. And the other interesting part that Raul brings in is he is not for amnesty, he is not for citizenship, but he is about finding a solution to immigration reform. His background is in immigration law. So if he does make it, which it is kind of a long shot, into leadership, perhaps we'd see a discussion about immigration more conservative, but at least back on the table.
Well, July 31st is a long bunch of weeks, a long bunch of days in front of us. Who knows what could happen, right, with Labrador or anybody else. Peter, you know, how can or should Democrats seize leverage from Cantor's loss? Is there an opening here for them, or is this really what they didn't think was happening, a Tea Party resurgence?
I think that Democrats are going to seize this by not doing anything. They're going to let this play out and hope that it causes a bunch of problems for Republicans. Republicans know that that's what's happening, however, and they are going to seek to make this as small a civil war as they can possibly manage and try to avoid the war part of it as much they can. And so that's going to be the tack that Democrats are going to take is not to try to exploit this by doing something, but to exploit it by letting it play itself out and seeing where it goes. What could they do, though, if they were to do something? Democrats can't do a whole lot at this point other than point out how much it shows that Republicans aren't in, you know, there's nobody who's in control of the Republican Party. And so what Democrats are going to say is that shows that this party is not ready to govern, not ready to lead. Republicans are going to come back to that by saying, look, we're in a transition stage, and people aren't happy with Obama, aren't happy with Democrats in many ways either. And so we're going to have to see how that plays out. Especially as November is on
really
the way.
In the sphere of discussion that we have right now, we're really aiming towards 14 this year, as well as 2016. Mitt Romney hosting a Republican summit this weekend in Utah, for instance, discussing one pertinent question, how to beat Hillary Clinton. And here he is on Meet the Press this morning.
I think her clueless comments about the Bergdahl exchange, as well as her record as the Secretary of State, are really going to be the foundation of how a Republican candidate is able to take back the White House.
David, in an election, and we're just about to get going on that, if we haven't already moved on this, is that a meaty argument that Republicans can make against Hillary Clinton should she run?
Well, I think there are a number of arguments they can make, but I think the key for Republicans is to nominate somebody that people like, that speaks to the concerns that voters have. I think that's been part of the problem that Republicans have had. It was a problem they had in 2012, and if they can nominate a fresh voice who has political talent, that knows how to appeal to people and knows why he's running and can really communicate that, I think they'll be in really good shape.
So it's not going to be the negative argument on the opponent, which we often will see, as you know, as we get closer to the vote date.
Negative campaigning works, but if you don't overshadow it with a positive message, it doesn't do its job.
Okay. Victoria, you know, Eric Cantor's primary opponent, David Bratt, which you're with, he attacked Cantor's position on immigration. We were talking about that all last week. Here's Cantor this morning on CNN. Take a listen.
I've always said that I am not for a comprehensive amnesty bill, but I've always said that I was for the kids who, due to no fault of their own, find themselves here and know no other place is home. Now, I know that that can make a lot of people mad on both sides, but I do think it is the only plausible way forward in terms of immigration reform.
Victoria, do you see the hope of immigration reform, the discussion of it happening during the presidential election cycle when it hits full force after this November?
You know, Richard, first of all, I am puzzled. I follow immigration very closely. I teach immigration here at the LBJ school. And when you say immigration to me, Eric Cantor isn't the first name that comes to mind in the House.
Well, now it does, though, right?
A whole bunch of absolutely. But so I think this is a bit of a misnomer of attaching the fall of Eric Cantor to immigration. You know, and we saw the polling after the fact that, you know, most of the folks in his district didn't associate him with. So after the fact, we're seeing this. The bigger point here is, however, that immigration is coming back into the fore. You can't have 13 million people in a country who are living in the shadows and just keep ignoring the fact.
So whether or not you're associating cancer with immigration, though, here, Victoria, you have to look at it towards 2016, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely going to be an issue here. And you know where it's really going to be an issue? It's going to be an issue in the Republican primary. The Democrats are already on board. With the Republican Party, it really cuts to the heart of the division. The establishment Republicans want to see George W. Bush type of immigration reform, and your more conservative Republicans don't want anything. That's the fight that's going to define the candidate.
Peter, quick closing word.
I think that this is a fight for the soul of the Republican Party in a lot of ways, and that's what you're seeing playing out this week. It's going to continue to play out in November and through 2016. The Republican Party has to decide who they want to be and what they want to stand for.
All right, wish we had more time. Victoria DeFrancesco Soto, Peter Suderman, thank you so much. David Drucker here at 30 Rock, thank you so much.